Alright, what's going on? Not too long ago, this interesting looking device right here was considered the holy grail of Android TV boxes. So much so that when I was on the hunt for the best Android TV box around, I couldn't stop running into the same name over and over and over again. Any subreddit, any video, any recommendation at all would always lead me back to the Nvidia Shield. Now, believe me, I tried what felt like everything under the sun to prevent myself from going bankrupt and shelling the money out for the Shield. Brand new, it retails for €200. For the average person, that is a chunk of change right there. But during that process, I opted for the more budget-oriented TV boxes that were recommended to me. And while they weren't bad by any means, they did tend to have their little quirks. And I always felt like something was missing. So eventually I caved in, bought the Shield, and lost all my money anyway. And I loved it. Typically, you don't feel good when your bank account looked the way mine did after the Shield left a crater in it. But I won't lie, that feeling of something missing was gone. And I was having the time of my life watching movies and TV shows in 4K with no food or drink. Because those were of course out of the budget for the foreseeable future. But recently, I've been seeing a whole lot of criticism being tossed in the Shield's direction, with some even calling the Shield dead and not worth it in this day and age. Now, as you can tell, I've been a pretty big fan of the Shield, so I'd hate for that to be the case. But for the sake of this video, I'll do some reflection on the Shield and the state of the Android TV world, and let's find out if that's really the case. So let's quickly talk about what the Nvidia Shield really is. While at first it may just seem like a ridiculously overpriced Android box, it kind of is that, but at the same time it's also by far the most powerful when it comes to graphical processing. The GPU in this thing blows all competition not only out of the water, but out of the solar system and potentially even out of the observable universe. There's nothing that can play ball on equal terms with the Nvidia Shield. It's actually unfair. Now, that's what you're really paying for. And the question is that even worth it? Because when you're talking CPU benchmarks, that's no longer the case. All Shield models are beaten by the 2nd and 3rd gen Fire TV Cube in both single and multi-core performance. Now, it's not necessarily by a landslide, and CPU performance is arguably less important when it comes to Android boxes, provided there's something acceptable there in the first place. However, it is something to note. The 3GB of RAM inside this thing also leaves a bit to be desired. I've never had issues with it, especially with the Shield's handy option to actually close applications as you would on a phone or any other device. RAM management with that becomes super easy. But when you're dropping your life savings on an Android TV box, you do not want to see cost savings going on around you. You need the best of the best, so do I, because that's what we're paying for. And 3 gigs of RAM is quite frankly just not that. On the back, you've got 2 USB ports, that's useful for external storage, a HDMI port with CEC support, which is very handy for when you coincidentally can't find the most god-awful remote of all time. I'm talking about the 2015 and 2017 remote, not the 2019 remote. That one's actually phenomenal. And finally, we have the Gigabit Ethernet port for people watching movies in 8K, I suppose. On the software side of things, the Shield runs the latest version of the Shield experience, which is just Android 11. Nothing crazy, but it's all you really need, so no issues there. Typical ads and such, but that's common all around with any Android TV box. It's not a Shield problem so much as it is a Google problem. On the outside, what's going to be sitting on your shelf, or preferably hidden behind the TV or in a cabinet, is the actually pretty good looking glossy body of the Shield. It took me some time to get used to it, but the futuristic alien design language eventually caught on. But it just will not work with anything you've got in your home cinema setup. It'll stick out like a sore thumb. I mean, it's just hilariously out of place unless you actually live in a spaceship. So that's what you get for the brand new price of an arm and a leg on Amazon. Now, all in all, it does seem a little underwhelming, but in practice, like I said, me personally, I've always had a great time using this thing for streaming content. However, the new consensus is that it's just wildly overpowered and you do not need this thing for streaming. Now, I want to quickly address something. If Netflix, Amazon Prime, and the typical streaming services are all you'll be using, even for 4K video, do not even think about the Shield. Because in that case, yes, the Shield is dead. Do not even think about going near this thing. Save your money, buy something like a Google 4K streamer or a Fire Stick 4K, and there you go. I've saved you a fortune. You don't even have to thank me, man. Look, I do this for you guys. Whatever, okay, if you really wanted to thank me, you can do it in the comments. Okay, let's resume. But if for, well, legal reasons, you're not like me and are planning some more nefarious activities, you know, circumventing some laws by sailing the 7 seas, okay, I don't want to sound like we're committing war crimes here. If you're planning on watching movies for free, in that case, this thing becomes much more enticing. In my experience, the free experience is a lot more stuttery on cheaper devices like the Chromecast with Google TV or a Fire Stick 4K. Still acceptable, but not perfect. But me personally, I can't deal with that. Stuttery video makes me violent. I can't tell you why that's the case, but in my experience, quite evidently, the extra power the Shield offers really does do something in that department. And if you're planning on emulating retro games, that's also something the Shield can do apparently quite well. I've never done it because I'd rather play games on literally anything else, including my microwave. But if that is something for you, then you will find that the Shield will outperform literally every other box in this area. So that's really it. That's what the Shield is and what it can do. So does that make its astronomical retail price worth it today? Or is the Shield indeed no longer worth getting at all? Well, in all honesty, with the Fire TV Cube being a thing for a fraction of the Shield's price when on sale, and with a good level of its performance, I'd have to recommend you go for that instead when buying new. If you are in the market for one, I have them linked down in the description. If you use that link, I get a bit of something, you don't pay any extra, and it's a win-win scenario. But on the used market, deals can be found, and you can easily get one for half the retail value. And in that case, given when looking for any true alternatives to the Shield's horsepower, again, there's no box that truly matches the raw power of the Shield and the ability to do just about everything at a competent level. I definitely still recommend buying one today if you're in the market for an Android TV box. But if you're not comfortable buying used, I'd go for the Fire TV Cube. At least for now, while they're still selling with the Android-based Fire OS. So no, the Shield is not dead. While it definitely is harder to justify the price for a new one today, it still retains its place as the king of Android TV boxes. And with the secondhand market being a thing, I'd say this little device is still very much alive and kicking for the foreseeable future. That's all I got to say. If you did enjoy this video and want to see more like it, do consider liking and subscribing. On that note though, stay safe, have a good one, and I'll see you next time.